June 12, 1944. 0640 hours. Northern outskirts of Ortona, Italy. The morning fog clung to the shattered streets like a thin curtain. Smoke drifted from collapsed buildings. The sound of distant artillery rolled across the town in slow, heavy waves. Allied infantry moved through broken alleys and fractured walls, advancing one block at a time. Every street carried the same threat. Hidden German snipers watched every approach. The moment a helmet appeared in a window frame, a single shot ended another life. Corporal Thomas Miller moved with the 2nd Platoon of C Company. He carried his Lee Enfield rifle, but his eyes were focused not on the weapon, but on the geometry of the environment around him. The jagged angles of fallen stone. The hollow chambers left by gutted homes. The narrow gaps between walls that once formed stairways. He studied them with the instinct of a man who had spent years reading blueprints. Miller was 32 years old. Before the war he worked as an architect in London. His specialty was acoustic behavior inside large structures. He understood how sound traveled along corridors, how ceilings trapped vibration, and how certain materials absorbed or reflected noise. Urban fighting punished any lack of awareness. The German sniper teams used every advantage. They built nests inside concealed corners of destroyed homes. They mounted rifles through broken vents. They fired from positions so deep within the rubble that ordinary observation failed. Allied units responded with suppressive fire, but bullets alone could not strike what they could not see. The result was predictable. Casualties increased every day. Platoon leaders grew desperate. Standard doctrine offered no reliable method to locate the snipers without sacrificing men. Miller watched it happen. A private in his unit leaned around a blown-out doorway. A sharp crack echoed across the street. The private fell. The platoon froze. They scanned windows for movement. They saw nothing. The sniper had fired from a location hidden beyond normal sight lines. The platoon returned fire across the front walls of the buildings, but hit only brick and dust. After 10 minutes of wasted ammunition they retreated into cover. The sniper lived. This pattern repeated for days. German marksmen shaped the tempo of the fight. They pinned down Allied squads for hours. They forced units to detour into more dangerous routes. They shot medics quickly. They fired 2 shots and vanished deeper inside the ruins. Every counter-attempt failed. Commanders debated using mortars, but the risk of collapsing entire structures on civilians and friendly troops made it impossible. The infantry needed a precise method. They had none. Miller thought constantly about the problem. He remembered how architects used small sound tests to measure room depth. Even a simple hand clap could reveal surprising acoustic information. In cathedrals, a single sharp sound created long, distinctive echoes that helped identify structural features. In construction sites, striking certain surfaces revealed hollows behind walls. He wondered if the same idea could work in a war zone. He tested small sounds with his boot heel against stone. He listened to the responses. He tried again the next day. Few men noticed his experiments. Those who did assumed he was passing time. Everything changed when he found a piece of clay roof tile inside a collapsed home. It was red, heavy, and hard. When tapped against stone it produced a clean, sharp crack that carried through the air without muting. Miller tested it immediately. The echo returned in distinct layers. He recognized those layers. They matched patterns he studied during his civilian work. Hard surfaces produced fast reflections. Hollow spaces produced softer delays. He realized that this tile could be used to map sound in the ruined streets. It gave him a tool to treat the battlefield like an acoustic chamber. He approached his sergeant with the idea. The sergeant frowned and shook his head. He told Miller that the platoon needed rifles, not noise tests. He ordered Miller to stop wasting time. Miller accepted the order but continued practicing when he could. He tapped the tile inside ruined corridors. He counted the milliseconds between the initial crack and the returning echo. He compared it to the size of the room. His knowledge of structural design guided his predictions. He began identifying hollow pockets inside rubble piles. He identified concealed rooms inside partially collapsed buildings. His confidence grew. On the 5th day of fighting, casualties mounted again. 2 more men fell to a sniper they could not locate. The platoon waited behind a broken stone archway. A lieutenant from battalion headquarters joined them. He wanted results. He asked the sergeant why the sniper had not been neutralized. The sergeant explained that they lacked a view of the nest. The lieutenant grew frustrated. Miller stepped forward. He requested permission to use his tile echo test. He explained the concept quickly. The lieutenant stared at him for a long moment. He had lost 3 men that morning. He allowed Miller one attempt. Miller moved into the street slowly. He stayed low. He held the clay tile in his left hand. He tapped it once against the nearest wall. The crack echoed down the alley and returned in multiple layers. Miller listened carefully. He moved 10 feet forward. He tapped the tile again. New echoes returned. He compared the differences. He identified a narrowing corridor of reflected sound. This corridor pointed toward a collapsed structure on the north side. The rubble pile looked ordinary, but the echoes indicated a hollow cavity behind it. A sniper could hide inside that cavity with a clear line of fire on the street. Miller returned to the platoon. He pointed directly at the rubble mound. He stated that the sniper was inside. The sergeant doubted him. The lieutenant considered the risks. He ordered a 2-man patrol to approach. The patrol advanced slowly with rifles ready. They reached the pile. They paused. One man lifted a loose board. A German marksman lay inside, rifle pointed toward the street. The patrol fired first. The sniper died instantly. The platoon stared at Miller in silence. His tile test had revealed the nest when nothing else worked. The first success changed the way the platoon viewed Miller. Soldiers who once laughed at his tapping now watched him with interest. The sergeant remained skeptical, but he could not deny that Miller had identified a position that no one else detected. The lieutenant wrote a short report for headquarters. He described Miller's method as an acoustic mapping technique using debris from the environment. The higher officers did not respond, but the report spread informally among nearby companies. Men began asking Miller how the test worked. He explained that the echoes revealed hollow spaces that often served as sniper hides. He told them that irregular acoustic returns usually meant man-made gaps inside rubble. His understanding of building materials guided his interpretation. The next day brought a harder challenge. A sniper had taken position deeper inside the town. This marksman operated with more discipline. He fired only once every hour. He changed positions frequently. He selected angles that exploited long corridors left by destroyed homes. Allied patrols attempted to flank him but were stopped by booby traps. A squad from another company lost 2 men trying to clear a position they believed housed the sniper. They found nothing. The sniper fired again 30 minutes later from a different angle. Miller heard the reports. He understood the danger. Snipers who moved after every shot created layered uncertainty. They forced units to resolve the same problem repeatedly. The lieutenant called Miller forward. He ordered him to try the echo test again. The sergeant advised against wasting time. The lieutenant insisted. Miller began at the last known firing point. He examined the geometry of the alley. He marked the angle from which the bullet came by inspecting the chipped stone. The impact suggested a position at least 80 meters away. He moved along the corridor, tapping the tile at regular intervals. Each echo returned with long, decaying trails that indicated larger interior cavities nearby. He divided the reflections into 3 categories. First, reflections from nearby stone. Secondary, reflections from mid-level surfaces. Tertiary, reflections from deep hollows inside the ruins. He advanced 20 meters. The tertiary echo patterns shifted. They grew sharper. This meant he was approaching a hollow chamber closer to the street. Snipers favored such positions because they created a stable firing nest shielded from debris. Miller continued until the echoes sharpened into a narrow signature. He stopped. He tapped the tile again. The third echo returned in a distinct way. It sounded like a small chamber backed by thick stone. This narrowed his search. He pointed to a building that had collapsed in a V shape. The entryway was blocked by rubble. A small corner opening remained visible. The sergeant dismissed it. He claimed it was too shallow for a sniper. Miller disagreed. The echo indicated a deeper pocket that was not visible from the street. The lieutenant ordered a careful approach. A 3-man team advanced. They climbed the rubble slowly. The first soldier reached the corner and signaled that the opening extended further inward. He crawled inside. Seconds later he shouted that the space opened into a hidden room. The sniper was gone, but fresh brass casings were on the floor. The room had been used within the last hour. The platoon did not celebrate. They knew the sniper would fire again. They repositioned. They waited. When the next shot came, the sound arrived from a different location, but Miller recognized an important detail. The tonal quality of the shot indicated that the sniper fired through a narrow slit. Such slits altered resonance. Miller listened closely. He compared the echo of the shot with known patterns. He believed the sniper had moved into a reinforced window frame within a partially intact structure. He moved again with his tile. He advanced carefully, tapping the tile against stone. The echoes returned in staggered intervals. He identified a rectangular cavity hidden behind a collapsed second floor. He directed the lieutenant toward a specific angle where the cavity opened toward the street. A machine gun team set up a low firing angle. They waited. Miller used the tile to trigger a small echo inside the alley. The sound bounced and reached the sniper's position. The sniper reacted by adjusting his rifle slightly. That movement exposed a sliver of metal through the dust. The machine gun team opened fire. Their rounds penetrated the slit. The firing stopped. The platoon confirmed the kill minutes later. Word of the success spread. Soldiers began calling the method the clay tile test. Miller disliked the name, but he accepted it. He kept refining his technique. He learned that softer taps revealed minute cavities. Harder taps revealed large hollow chambers. When used in sequence, the taps allowed him to map complex structures quickly. By the third week of fighting, Miller's reputation reached battalion headquarters. A major visited the platoon. He brought 2 intelligence officers. They asked Miller to demonstrate the method. He did so inside a ruined church. He tapped the tile against a pillar. The echoes revealed a hollow space behind a collapsed arch. One officer entered the space and confirmed it. The major nodded. He stated that urban terrain demanded new ideas. He approved limited use of Miller's tests. The order spread quietly. The next major battle tested Miller's skill more than anything before. German snipers established a 3-position kill zone inside a dense block near the old municipal hall. They used interlocking fields of fire. They forced Allied units into dead ends. They pinned down 2 squads for more than an hour. Attempts to flank failed. The snipers used tunnels created by collapsed floors to move unseen. Miller entered the block with the lieutenant and 6 riflemen. He knelt near a broken wall and tapped the tile. The echo returned with chaotic layers. This meant the structure had multiple interconnected cavities. It would be difficult. He moved forward anyway. He conducted 3 taps from 3 angles. He analyzed the differences. He predicted that the first sniper lay inside a hollow chamber formed by a collapsed interior staircase. He guided the riflemen toward it. They found the nest. It was empty, but fresh tracks showed that the sniper had moved minutes earlier. Miller continued deeper. He tapped again. The echo revealed a second cavity on the left flank. He sent 2 riflemen to flank it. They found another nest. Also empty. The snipers were staying ahead of him. He pressed forward. He tapped again. The echoes shifted sharply. This told him that one cavity was not empty. Occupied cavities produced dampened tertiary reflections because bodies absorbed sound. He listened twice to confirm. The signature matched a small hollow space located beneath a pile of broken beams. He pointed at the beams. The lieutenant ordered a grenadier forward. The grenadier placed an explosive charge. The blast opened the cavity. A German sniper stumbled out, disoriented. The rifleman fired instantly. Miller never celebrated. He moved toward the remaining echo patterns. He believed at least 2 more snipers remained. Miller moved into the next corridor with the lieutenant close behind him. The block was a maze of half-standing rooms, collapsed floors, and unstable beams. Every sound mattered. A single misstep could trigger a fall. He paused near a cracked stone pillar. He tapped the tile lightly. The echo returned in 2 layers. The first was sharp and immediate. The second was soft and delayed. This meant there was a chamber behind the wall, but it was partially filled with debris. A filled chamber could still hide a sniper, but the acoustic pattern would be irregular. He advanced and tapped again at a different angle. This time the secondary echo carried a faint distortion. That distortion indicated airflow. Sniper hides often required small vents to avoid suffocation during long periods of waiting. Miller focused on that detail. He shifted 5 meters to the right and tapped again. The distortion grew stronger. He pointed to a jagged opening in a broken second floor. The lieutenant nodded and sent a 2-man team to climb up. The team reached the opening. They looked inside. They whispered that the chamber extended deeper than expected. Before they could proceed, a shot came from the far end. It hit the stone near their boots. They dropped back. The sniper retreated deeper into the space. Miller reacted immediately. He repositioned. He tapped the tile twice. In rapid succession. The echoes returned with a new signature, indicating the depth of the chamber and the angle of the vent. A grenadier moved into position and tossed a grenade into the opening. The explosion shook the structure. Dust filled the air. The team entered again and confirmed the kill. This left the 3rd sniper. He had not fired during the last engagement. He was likely the most patient and disciplined. The lieutenant knew this sniper would be the most dangerous. Skilled marksmen waited for moments when units felt safe. They struck during transitions when soldiers lowered their guard. The lieutenant ordered the men to stay low and stay silent. Miller tapped the tile near the entrance of the next corridor. The echo returned muddled. Too many collapsed surfaces interfered with the reflection. He needed a cleaner angle. He moved slowly to a corner and tapped again. The echo improved. He identified two distinct cavities. One cavity was shallow and irregular. The other was deep, stable, and reinforced. Snipers preferred reinforced cavities because they allowed steady shots and better cover. He continued mapping. He tapped along the corner, adjusting his angle each time. He calculated distances using the timing of the echoes. He determined that the deep cavity lay beneath a slab that had once been the floor of a laundry room. The slab had fallen at an angle, creating a natural roof. This cavity had a firing line that could target the main hallway. If the sniper waited until the platoon advanced, he would have a perfect shot. Miller warned the lieutenant. The lieutenant considered retreating, but the unit behind them needed to clear the block. Waiting would give the sniper time to escape or reposition. They had to act. Miller advanced slowly. He tapped the tile at the edge of the slab. The echo returned with the signature he expected from an occupied space. The tertiary echo came back weak and warm. Human bodies absorbed high-frequency sound. Few soldiers knew this. Miller recognized it instantly. He pointed to the slab. The lieutenant ordered silence. A rifleman prepared to crawl toward the firing line. Miller stopped him. Crawling would expose the rifleman's silhouette to the cavity. Instead, Miller instructed a different approach. He directed the men to create a distraction by tapping metal debris near the opposite wall. The echo would trick the sniper into adjusting his line of fire. A private lifted a metal rod and struck a broken pipe. The sharp clang echoed across the hallway. The sound bounced toward the cavity. Miller watched closely. The sniper shifted. The movement caused a faint disturbance in the echo. That disturbance helped Miller confirm the depth of the sniper's angle. With the sniper momentarily misaligned, the lieutenant ordered a rifleman to flank the slab. The rifleman crawled around the side where the sniper had no direct angle. He reached the corner. He positioned his rifle. He fired 3 shots into the cavity. A sharp cry followed. The men advanced and found the sniper dead. 3 snipers in one block. All neutralized. None had been located by standard methods. Miller's tile echo test had guided every engagement. The platoon gathered behind a stable wall to rest. The men were exhausted. Their nerves shook. Miller sat down and studied the clay tile. A crack had begun to form across its edge. It would not last forever. The lieutenant joined him. He asked how many more snipers the method could expose. Miller told him that it depended on the structure of the terrain. The test worked best in dense urban ruins where cavities formed naturally. In open fields or forests it would be useless. The lieutenant nodded. He said that urban battles would continue as they moved north. He predicted that Miller's method would save many lives. Miller did not respond. He only held the tile and wondered how many buildings would collapse before he found the next echo chamber. By the end of June, the unit fought through several more towns. German snipers remained active along every route. Miller's method became a quiet habit among the platoon. When entering new streets, soldiers asked Miller to tap walls before advancing. He would identify hidden pockets or dead ends that could hide gunmen. The method did not always reveal an enemy, but it often showed spaces that required caution. The platoon adjusted their entry angles accordingly. Casualties dropped. One engagement became a turning point. Near the village of San Leonardo, a German sniper team set a trap. They fired from a false position to lure Allied troops into a kill zone. When the platoon advanced, a second sniper opened fire from a concealed nest behind a collapsed chimney. The first shot missed. The second grazed a sergeant. The men retreated into cover. Miller stepped forward. He studied the angles. He recognized that the first sniper had fired from a location with an unusually bright echo. This meant the shot came from a narrow, stone-lined slit. The second shot carried a dampened echo. This meant the bullet passed through a partially enclosed wooden chamber. 2 different nests. 2 different acoustic signatures. He moved toward the first location. He tapped the tile near a broken archway. The echo returned fast. He identified a narrow vertical cavity behind the stone. A marksman climbed the rubble, positioned his rifle, and fired through the slit. The sniper fell back instantly. Then they moved to the second nest. Miller tapped the tile near the base of the chimney. The echo returned in a soft pattern. He identified a wooden chamber behind a sheet of fallen plaster. A single grenade ended the threat. The platoon began calling Miller the Echo Man. Miller disliked the attention. He only focused on saving lives. He spent nights reviewing the acoustic behavior of each building. He practiced taps with different objects: stone fragments, metal plates, wood scraps. Nothing matched the clarity of the clay tile. The war intensified. The rubble grew thicker. The echoes grew harder to read. Miller adapted. He developed a sequence of tap rhythms that allowed him to isolate deeper cavities. The tile cracked further. He braced it with cloth to keep it from breaking entirely. He knew it would fail eventually, but he hoped it would last until the end of the campaign. The next major engagement came in early July. The unit approached a dense district that had once been a residential quarter. The houses were built close together, separated by narrow walkways. After weeks of shelling, most structures had collapsed into layered piles of stone, tile, wood, and steel. These layers created deep acoustic pockets. German snipers exploited them. They built nests behind multiple barriers. They fired from angles that confused even experienced observers. The first sign of danger came when a forward scout fell from a single shot fired from an unseen position. The platoon froze. The lieutenant ordered everyone into cover. The echoes from the rifle shot bounced across the district. The sound mixed with overlapping reflections. Miller listened carefully. He separated the echoes one by one. He determined that the sniper fired from a cavity inside a partially intact home with a collapsed roof. The cavity had a wide angle of fire. Miller moved toward the structure. He tapped the tile. The echo returned long and clean. This indicated a large hollow space. He changed his angle and tapped again. The tertiary echo returned with a weak and distorted pattern. That distortion came from airflow caused by a small opening. Miller identified the likely position. He pointed to a dark cavity behind a broken window frame near the top of the structure. The lieutenant ordered a gunner to position his Bren gun at a low angle. Miller tapped the tile once more to confirm. The echo matched the expected signature. The gunner fired a short burst into the cavity. Dust erupted. A rifle tumbled out. A sniper fell moments later. The threat ended. The platoon advanced into the next street. This one was more dangerous. The Germans had prepared interlinked sniper nests. They created multiple routes inside collapsed buildings. They moved through the ruins using narrow crawl spaces. They used false openings as decoys. Some nests were empty. Others were deadly. Miller knelt near a pile of rubble that had once been a courtyard wall. He tapped the tile. The echo returned strangely dampened. Not from human presence but from something soft. He tapped again. He realized that the cavity behind the rubble was filled with clothing and bedding. The Germans had used them to trap sound. This tactic reduced acoustic signatures and made detection harder. He moved 10 meters to the right and tapped again. The echo cleared slightly. He used his knowledge of acoustic diffusion to estimate the shape of the cavity. He determined that the sniper likely built a chamber with layered cloth to muffle sound while waiting for targets. The sniper probably used a secondary firing hole at an angle opposite the dampened space. Miller checked the angle of incoming fire from earlier. The bullet impact indicated a shot from a high position. He looked up. A small triangular gap in the debris lay above a collapsed beam. He tapped the tile again. The tertiary echo confirmed occupancy. He alerted the lieutenant. A marksman climbed a nearby staircase and positioned himself at an angle that contradicted the sniper's expected line of sight. He fired one shot. The chamber erupted in dust. The platoon found the sniper minutes later. The most difficult challenge of the day came as the platoon approached a narrow passage that fed into a courtyard. Snipers often fired from positions with long secondary reflections. These reflections helped Miller locate them. But this passage produced almost no tertiary echoes. This meant either the rubble was completely solid or the cavities were too small to produce measurable reflections. Both possibilities were dangerous. Miller tapped the tile along the right wall. The echo returned shallow and sharp. No cavity. He moved left. He tapped again. The echo returned slightly longer. He moved 3 steps forward. He tapped again. The echo grew deeper. He repeated the process. With each tap he traced a hidden corridor behind the left wall. The corridor did not appear on any structural map. It was created by collapse, not by design. The Germans likely used it to move between nests. He followed the echo trail until the sound indicated an abrupt widening. A larger chamber existed at the end of the corridor. This chamber could hide 2 or more snipers. The platoon held position. The lieutenant asked Miller for a prediction. Miller estimated that the chamber measured at least 2 meters deep and 3 meters wide based on the timing of the third echo layer. He suggested approaching from a lower angle. He warned that a frontal attack would expose the men immediately. The lieutenant agreed. He sent 2 soldiers to take a lower path through the debris. They approached the chamber from beneath. One soldier climbed a beam and peered inside. He spotted a sniper cleaning his rifle. He signaled the team. They neutralized the target silently. But there was movement deeper inside the chamber. A second sniper pulled back. He prepared to fire through a hidden slit. Miller heard the subtle shift of rubble. The echo changed. He tapped the tile. The new echo indicated that the sniper was adjusting to a new angle. Miller shouted a warning. The rifleman ducked. The sniper's shot tore through the dust above him. The lieutenant ordered a coordinated action. One rifleman fired suppressive shots at the front slit. Another soldier threw a grenade into the chamber from the lower angle. The explosion ended the threat. The platoon crossed into the courtyard. The men breathed easier. The fighting had drained them. Miller studied the district. Every building had become a fracture of angles, hollow pockets, and unstable structures. To most soldiers this was chaos. To Miller, it was a diagram of acoustic information waiting to be decoded. During a brief pause, a captain from headquarters approached. He carried a notepad. He requested an explanation of Miller's methods. He asked how the tile tapping identified sniper nests. Miller explained the basics. He described primary echoes and their speed. He described secondary reflections. He described tertiary echoes from deeper cavities. He described how human presence changed the sound. The captain wrote everything down. He asked if the method could be standardized. Miller responded that each building produced unique patterns. The method required experience and spatial understanding. Could not be taught quickly. The captain left with his notes. The lieutenant approached Miller. He told him that the officers might try to formalize the method. Miller said he did not care about credit. He only wanted to protect the platoon. The lieutenant nodded. He told Miller that the method had already saved more lives than any rifle in the company. The day ended with another small engagement. A lone sniper fired a single shot from a pile of debris. The platoon dropped into cover. Miller stepped forward with his tile. He tapped 3 times. The tertiary echo returned with a faint, delayed warmth. Human presence. He directed the men to an angled approach. They advanced. They found the sniper hiding behind 2 stacked beams. The threat ended quickly. Miller returned to the platoon and sat down. He examined his tile. The crack grew wider. It would break soon. He had no replacement. He worried that once the tile failed, the platoon would lose their advantage. He knew that every tap brought it closer to breaking. Still he continued. July continued with heavy fighting as the unit pushed through the northeastern edge of the Italian town. Each block became a test of patience, awareness, and survival. German sniper teams adapted. They changed their nest designs. They created deeper chambers with multiple internal walls to confuse sound. Some added metal sheets or broken doors to distort echoes. Miller studied each new tactic. He learned how metal shifted resonance. He learned how fabric absorbed sound. He learned how layered wood created false tertiary echoes. He refined his method with each threat. One morning the platoon advanced toward a long avenue lined with the remains of residential buildings. A sniper fired from somewhere along the avenue. The shot struck a corporal in the leg. The men scattered into cover. Miller tapped the tile against a doorway. The echo returned in 3 layers. All 3 were distorted. This meant the entire structure ahead had been modified. The sniper wanted his acoustic signature hidden. Miller moved down the avenue, tapping at 5-meter intervals. Each echo came back blurred. The sniper had created a broad area of deception. Miller recognized that the sniper used multiple obstacles to scatter sound. This tactic made detection harder. Most soldiers believed the sniper was somewhere along the right side of the avenue. Miller listened to the bullet's impact. The sound pattern indicated a left angle. He moved toward the collapsed entrance of a house that had once been 2 stories tall. He tapped again. A faint tertiary echo returned. It carried a soft warmth. Human presence. He confirmed it with another tap. The lieutenant ordered 2 riflemen to take the higher flank while the rest provided covering fire. The rifleman climbed the debris, approached from above, and spotted a small opening hidden behind a broken sink. A sniper crouched inside. The rifleman fired and secured the nest. As they advanced, the platoon encountered a new danger. German marksmen began setting double-chamber traps. A small cavity would sit in front of a deeper chamber. The front cavity was empty. The second cavity held the sniper. When soldiers focused on the front echo, the sniper fired from behind. 2 Allied soldiers died before the pattern was understood. Miller studied the double-chamber layout. He tapped the tile near the first cavity. The echo pattern was uniform. He tapped again at a different angle. The tertiary echo returned faintly. This indicated a deeper chamber. He explained the pattern to the platoon. They approached the second cavity from above. They eliminated the sniper without further losses. The men thanked Miller. They trusted his ear more than any map. The next week brought the most complex challenge yet. The platoon entered an industrial block containing remnants of a workshop. Machinery lay scattered across the floor. Compressed metal parts created dense acoustic barriers. Snipers hid behind them. One shot struck a private in the shoulder. Chaos followed. The men dove behind machines and broken carts. Miller tapped the tile on a thick metal panel. The echo returned sharply but scattered. Metal reflected sound unpredictably. He shifted to a concrete column. The echo returned clean. He used this anchor point to build a new acoustic map. He tapped again. He identified a pocket behind a large lathe. He pointed. A rifleman approached and found an empty chamber. The sniper had already moved. Miller tapped further along the wall. The echo grew deeper. He recognized a large cavity behind the machinery. The cavity formed a natural firing platform. He warned the platoon. Before they advanced, a shot came from inside the cavity. The bullet struck a machine, sending sparks across the floor. The platoon returned fire. Miller waited for silence. He tapped twice. The tertiary echo returned warm and slow. The sniper was still inside. Miller guided a grenadier to a narrow flank route. The grenadier reached the side of the machine and tossed a grenade into the cavity. The explosion ended the threat. The fight grew more intense. Snipers coordinated across multiple chambers. Some shifted positions every 5 minutes. Others used scrap metal to mask their sound. Miller kept tapping. He studied each reflection. He adjusted his interpretations. His tile cracked further. A small piece chipped off. He wrapped the tile in cloth to preserve it. One afternoon the platoon approached a long corridor formed by 2 collapsed buildings leaning against each other. A sniper watched this corridor. His shot killed a private instantly. The platoon froze. The lieutenant considered falling back. Miller stepped forward. He tapped the tile against the left wall. The echo returned shallow. No cavity. He tapped the right wall. The echo returned long and deep. A chamber existed behind the debris. Miller moved forward. He tapped again. The echo returned with irregular warmth. The sniper was inside. The lieutenant ordered the platoon to shift position. Miller advanced 5 more meters. He tapped at a lower angle. The echo confirmed that the chamber had a downward opening. Snipers often use such openings to fire from prone positions. A marksman climbed a beam to approach from above. He positioned his rifle. He fired once into the opening. The sniper cried out. The team secured the chamber moments later. The platoon reached the end of the corridor. Before they could advance further, 2 shots rang out in quick succession. Both missed. The sound indicated 2 snipers firing from coordinated positions. Miller tapped twice. The echo returned in overlapping layers. This meant the snipers had created 2 separate cavities close together. Miller separated the echoes by tapping at different angles. He identified which cavity held which sniper by the warmth of the reflection. He pointed to the left cavity. The sergeant led a flank team. They advanced and eliminated the sniper. Miller tapped again. The tertiary echo from the right cavity returned stronger. The remaining sniper shifted after the first kill. The lieutenant ordered a suppressive burst. The sniper ducked. A grenadier tossed a grenade into the cavity. The explosion ended the last threat. Miller sat down after the engagement. His tile cracked completely. It split into 2 pieces. He held both halves. He knew it had reached the end of its life. The men watched him quietly. They understood the significance. That tile had saved dozens of lives. It had guided the platoon through every block. The lieutenant approached. He told Miller that a supply runner found more clay tiles in a ruined home. Miller checked them. None matched the hardness or resonance of his original tile. The lieutenant suggested trying anyway. Miller agreed. He kept 2 tiles that produced the clearest tones. They were not perfect, but they would have to work. The campaign continued. The snipers adapted. But Miller's method adapted as well. He became faster at reading echoes. He learned how to compensate for weaker tiles. He developed a tapping sequence that maximized sound clarity. By late July, the platoon had saved more men than any unit in the sector. Officers from nearby companies asked for Miller's help. Some wanted to learn the technique. Others wanted him to personally identify nests. He assisted when possible. He told them that the method required understanding of spatial geometry and material resonance. Few understood. Most relied on him directly. Miller's reputation reached division headquarters. A colonel sent a request for a demonstration. Miller traveled to a safe block. He demonstrated his tapping method inside a partially destroyed administrative building. The colonel asked how accurate the method was. Miller responded that the method was not perfect. It depended on environmental factors. But when used carefully, it provided valuable intelligence. The colonel approved continued use. August arrived with heavier resistance. German units fell back toward fortified positions while leaving skilled snipers behind to slow the Allied advance. These snipers operated in pairs or trios. They used deeper chambers and more advanced concealment. They built layered nests with angled barriers that absorbed sound. The battlefield became an acoustic puzzle more complex than anything Miller had faced. The platoon entered another ruined district. The rubble formed narrow funnels that forced soldiers into predictable paths. A sniper fired immediately and struck a private near the shoulder. The platoon scattered. Miller moved to the nearest wall. He tapped the tile. The echo returned in 4 layers. Each layer indicated a different chamber depth. This meant the building ahead contained multiple nested cavities. He tapped again at a higher angle. The echo shifted. One of the chambers produced a warm, soft return. That return meant human presence. He pointed to the structure with certainty. The lieutenant sent a team to approach from the flank. They moved slowly along the rubble ridge, reached the opening, and eliminated the sniper. Seconds later, another shot came from deeper inside the block. This shot carried a sharper acoustic signature. It passed through 2 narrow openings before striking a stone surface. Miller listened. He tapped. The echo returned tight and compressed. This meant the shot originated from a narrow slit inside a reinforced cavity. Miller moved along the wall. He tapped at measured intervals. The echo sharpened. He identified the correct angle. He pointed to a hole in a fractured stone pillar. A marksman positioned himself and fired through the slit. A German rifle clattered to the ground. The team confirmed the kill. But there was a third sniper. This one was different. He fired no shot. He remained silent. Silent snipers were the hardest to find. They waited for hours. They struck when soldiers believed the area was secure. The lieutenant ordered the platoon to hold. Miller stepped deeper into the district. He tapped the tile lightly. The echo returned flat. The building ahead was fully collapsed. He moved 3 meters to the right and tapped again. A faint tertiary echo returned. It was soft, almost hidden. He tapped again. The echo warmed slightly. He recognized the pattern. Someone was inside a small cavity behind 2 layers of debris. He motioned for silence. He shifted left and tapped again. The echo indicated the cavity was angled upward. He informed the lieutenant. The lieutenant sent a small team to climb the debris. They moved slowly, staying low. They approached the cavity from above. They positioned their rifles. They fired 3 shots. The sniper never reacted. The chamber collapsed after the engagement. When the platoon inspected it, they found the sniper had been preparing to fire from a slit that covered the entire hallway. The platoon advanced again. They reached a broad courtyard formed by 3 collapsed buildings. This courtyard became their greatest test. 2 snipers operated from opposite sides. They used overlapping fields of fire. Their shots came in perfect coordination. They pinned the platoon behind a low wall. 2 men were hit within minutes. Another man attempted to crawl to safety, but the snipers tracked him and forced him back. The lieutenant knew they were trapped. Miller knelt behind the wall. He tapped the tile twice. The echo returned chaotic. Too many surfaces interfered. He tapped from a different angle. The echo separated into 2 distinct tertiary layers. Each layer corresponded to 1 sniper. He shifted 2 meters right and tapped again. One of the echoes grew warmer. He found the nearest sniper. He pointed to a collapsed balcony. The lieutenant nodded. The platoon created a distraction by tossing a stone across the courtyard. The sniper shifted. Miller heard the change immediately. He tapped again. The echo confirmed that the nearer sniper moved slightly. A marksman positioned himself at the abandoned stairwell. He fired into the cavity. The sniper fell. But the second sniper remained. This one repositioned after his partner was killed. His shot hit the top of the wall and showered dust on the platoon. Miller listened closely. He tapped the tile softly. The tertiary echo returned faint and thin. This meant the sniper was inside a narrow cavity. The cavity likely extended downward. Downward chambers created positional advantage because soldiers rarely checked below eye level. He moved along the right side of the courtyard. He tapped at low angles. The echo grew stronger. He followed it. He reached a fractured wooden beam. He tapped again. The sound returned warm and delayed. The sniper was directly below the beam. The lieutenant ordered a grenadier forward. The grenadier crawled to the beam. He placed a grenade inside the gap. The explosion ended the final threat. Silence settled over the courtyard. The men exhaled for the first time in minutes. Miller sat down. He examined the tile. It remained intact after the engagement. He felt relief. He knew the campaign was almost over. But he also knew that the snipers would continue fighting until the last street was secured. Over the next days the platoon advanced north. Sniper attacks grew less frequent. German forces withdrew to stronger defensive lines. The unit cleared remaining districts with fewer losses. The lieutenant often credited Miller's echo test for their survival. Commanders from nearby companies requested his assistance. He helped where he could. He explained that his method was not magic. It required patience, practice, and understanding of building behavior. When the fighting ended in late summer, Miller returned to the rear for rest. A captain from headquarters met with him. He asked for a detailed report on the echo test. Miller wrote everything he could. He described the properties of clay tile. He described the behavior of sound inside rubble. He described the patterns associated with human presence. The captain filed the report with division headquarters. No formal doctrine was created. The method remained unofficial. But word of it moved through the ranks. Miller returned to his unit weeks later. The platoon welcomed him. They knew what he had done for them. They knew how many men he had saved. They knew that without the echo test the casualty count would have been far higher. When the war ended, Miller returned to London. He resumed his architectural work. He specialized in analyzing acoustic behavior in damaged structures. Few people knew about his wartime method. He rarely mentioned it. He believed that the men who survived were the real legacy of the method. The war moved on. New weapons emerged. New doctrines developed. But in Italy, soldiers remembered the man who tapped a piece of clay tile against stone and located threats that no one else could find. Years later, surviving veterans spoke of him. They described moments when the echo test saved entire squads. They described the way he listened to the rubble like a blueprint. They described how his civilian skill became a battlefield tool. Miller himself kept the original cracked tile on a shelf in his workshop. He never used it again. It stayed there as a reminder of the lives he saved and the men he fought beside. His story remained largely unknown outside those who witnessed it. But among the soldiers who survived the Italian campaign, the name Thomas Miller carried weight. They remembered the architect who turned sound into a weapon. They remembered the echo test that found hidden snipers when nothing else could. They remembered the quiet man who walked through shattered streets with a broken tile in his hand and listened for the faintest reflections of danger.